Introduction, Speaker Jeff Young. Jeff.
Good afternoon.
You tall guys.
When I got here this morning, I was in the back talking to Coach Montgomery, which, by the way, is his birthday today. And we got talking a little bit about Walsh, and it's hard for me to believe, and it was hard for Coach to believe. It's been 40 years, or just a little over 40 years, since Coach Huggins and his staff, Randy and Dan Peters, stepped on campus at Walsh. And I'm thankful for all three of those guys. Most of my basketball philosophies come from all three of those guys, and they've been a big part of my career, especially at Walsh. So when Coach arrived at Walsh, I was still, I think, in 9th or 10th grade, so our paths almost crossed. He was leaving Walsh. He was leaving Walsh when I was arriving, and of course, Coach Peters stayed and coached me at Walsh for a couple years. But I heard a lot of the stories over the years, and again, I'm grateful to be able to be a part of that kind of coaching tree. The one thing I've done the last 20 years, this will be my 20th year as the head coach at Walsh. For the last 19 years, every time I have a recruit come on campus, the first thing I do is walk them into our gym. And on one of the walls, we have all our championship banners. And the first one is in 1982. And so I tell them the story of before 1982, Walsh really didn't win many games at all, for that matter. And we had a dean of students at the time, Richard Jassone. And there's three things about Richard. One, he was very competitive. He liked to win, and he loved basketball. And he was set out to find himself a really good basketball coach. And his plan was to find the best high school coach in the state of Ohio. And so what he did, he jumped in his car and drove an hour south down 77 to Indian Valley and tried to convince Charlie Huggins to take the job. And I think Charlie was happy with where he was at, but he told Rich, he said, "Hey, I got the perfect guy for you." And Rich looked at him like, maybe his assistant or something. He said, "No, Bob Huggins, my son." And at the time, I think Coach was only about 25 years old. And I think Rich probably wavered for a little bit, but it was probably the best decision that he ever made as far as Walsh basketball is concerned. So I think in his first year, there were a couple games under 500. I think between himself and Coach Montgomery, they brought in about 60 kids. I think they had one kid that he was on the team, but he didn't know he had to go to class. So he would show up to practice, just follow a couple other guys to class. He wasn't even registered. I think it took a half a semester before they even figured out he wasn't registered in college. But he was 6'10", Coach. So it didn't matter. So anyway, after year one, like I said, there were a couple games under 500. By year three, they're undefeated and probably win a national championship. Their best player didn't. I think he broke his finger or something like that. Was unable to play in the national tournament. As you know, from there, he spent a year down in Florida and came back home to Akron. Akron was kind of in the same situation that Walsh was in when Coach took over. And being from Akron, I used to go to a lot of those games. And at the time, we'd go, not necessarily to see if they would win or lose, but to see how many points Joe DeKubik would have. Some of you guys know that name. You get 30, 40, 50, 60 points a night. But there was never really anybody there to watch those games. And then Coach shows up, and everything changed dramatically. I can remember as a college senior, me and my roommate David Selman going up to those games, and they were packed. Unbelievable level of play. One game stuck out in my mind against Cleveland State, and Coach Mackey and Mouse McFadden and coach had Eric McLaughlin, just a hell of a game. And you know, even though the product on the floor was at a very high level, myself and I think a lot of people that packed that place were there to watch Coach. You never knew what to expect every night. But for myself, knowing, you know, that I wanted to be a college coach, my eyes were on him at all times, and you know, I learned a lot just by watching him. So obviously after Akron, on to Cincinnati, where I really believe he won a national championship there if his best player, Kenyon Martin, doesn't go down with an injury. From Cincinnati to Kansas State, and Kansas State over to where he's at now at West Virginia. So he's amassed over 900 wins, which puts him 4th among Division I coaches. By the end of the year, he should pass Coach Boeheim and move into 3rd, only behind Connecticut, Calhoun, and of course Coach K in that #1 position. And then last year, the pinnacle of all basketball, he was inducted to the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame.
You know, every time somebody does that, damn, I feel old. I came up here, I was first year at Walsh, they said, go to the Hall of Fame luncheon and speak. I was scared to death. I mean, you people intimidated the hell out of me. It's awful. Then I'll just give you a little bit of, you know, my little brother over there, who's, I guess, not my little brother anymore. He's more like my big brother. But we're very fortunate to grow up where we grew up and with whom we grew up. And it was, see, I was born in Morgantown, West Virginia, believe it or not. I was born in Vincent Bloody Hospital downtown. It's now an old folks home. I had to save him a bed. Yeah. But I grew up in Morgantown. We lived in Dugdale. For anybody who knows anything about Morgantown, that's suburban Saberton. It's up to, as they say in West Virginia, it's up to Holla. So we grew up to Holla and chased snakes around and caught crabs in a creek, and you know, those kind of wonderful things. But I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be able to go back to my alma mater. Talked to one of my teammates last night, my former teammates, I guess last night, who was, back then he was a sun-kissed All-American. Now they're McDonald's All-Americans. We were sun-kissed All-Americans. And then, you know what you got for being a sun-kissed All-American? There was a little thing that's about this big. It's like, what the hell do you do with this? we were sun-kissed All-Americans. So, I love being back. I love people of West Virginia. People of West Virginia are absolutely wonderful. And there's been a lot of talk about the portal. Y'all know what the portal is?
Yeah, yeah.
Good, I don't. I'm not sure what the hell it is. We're trying, you know, you try to do the right thing, and you know, for years and years and years. I mean, if I went to Walsh and I came in here and I said, hey, listen, we got to round up some money to buy some players, you'd have said, what? Only Cam McKinley does that. I had to do it. This portal thing is crazy. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Like we got a point guard from some country that I can't even pronounce. That's the truth. I mean, I don't know where it is. or whatever, but he is allegedly the best point guard, will be the best point guard in college basketball. Actually, we beat Xavier for him, which I love. Every time the Nuns get beat, I love it. That's true. If you grew up in Cincinnati and you were a UC fan, probably the number one person or people maybe is better that you really couldn't stand were the Nuns, because they got away with everything now. I mean, they threw rubber penises at us. Not just the Nuns. I mean the whole arena. The whole arena. And they did. That's the truth. Now they're about that thick. They're about that long. So they threw these rubber penises at us. And Nancy Peters, Coach Pete's wife, went around, gathered them all up, and put them in her purse. And then she went to church the next day and went up and saw the priest and dumped them out on the whatever that thing is. What is this thing called? Podium. I thought about it quicker than you did. So she dumps those out on the deal and says, "This is what happens at your school." He said, "They didn't do that. The Nuns wouldn't do that. They wouldn't allow that." She said, "Well, where do you think they came from? You think I carry these around?" They go on the radio and say it didn't happen. They also chanted FUC during the national anthem, and they said that didn't happen. And Jay Billis is doing the game, and Jay Billis says, "I can't believe in a Catholic institution that they would allow this during the game." You know what the nun said? That didn't happen. So, I don't have much of an affinity for nuns. I'm Baptist anyways, doesn't it? Anyways, enough about Xavier. I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to talk about. I haven't been here for so long. I almost got lost. I turned on the wrong street. But we're going to be pretty good, folks. We really are. I mean, don't turn us off TV. We're going to be pretty good. We have the number one point guard in the portal, if that means anything. We got a 7'1" center now. Our center before was 6'8", but he was 360 pounds. He had a hard time, you know, as they say, changing ends. So now we got a 7'1" guy who can run, jump, and all that. So hopefully he works out well for us. We got a 2-guard out of the portal, who I think is really, really good. And I think he's pretty tough. He grew up in an Indian reservation. That's the truth. Grew up in an Indian reservation. Comes to campus, he said, "What's your Indian population like around here?" I'm like, "Huh?" He said, "The Indian population." I said, "Well, I don't know. I'm not Indian. I don't have any idea." My assistant coach, one of my assistant coaches actually grew up in an Indian reservation. So I said, "Well, Josh is on the road. He'll be back. When he gets back, you all can talk about the Indian reservations," because he grew up in an Indian reservation too, and he thought I was joking. And so my assistant, he had a great talk about growing up on a reservation. But he's really, really good. He's a wonderful, wonderful kid. So we're blessed. You know, we've got, believe it or not, we got a guy from Canton finally. Oh, good. Who better guard, because he can't shoot. So he better guard his ass off. Otherwise, you turn on the TV, you won't see him much. But no, we're looking forward to it. I think we can have a great year. I think it may be the most talented group that we've had since the Final Four year. And as mentioned prior, we had a chance to win a national championship when Deshaun Butler went down with a knee. We had a chance to win a national championship, or would have won a national championship going away if Kenyon Martin hadn't broken his leg. So I'm trying to figure out what we do to, try to keep that from ever happening again. I don't know if you think about putting all of our guys in a cast now. I just don't know how they change ends, but we've had opportunities. Kenyon Martin is still my favorite guy in the world. He was absolutely phenomenal at what he did. We had 3 teams come in, and the coach said, if you take a shot inside the 3-point line, I'm getting rid of you. You're too dumb to be here, because he could block it. So there were 3 teams that came in and shot all threes, and because of his presence around the basket. He now has a son's playing for the Houston Rockets. That's very, very good and very athletic. I probably shouldn't say this, but Kenyon wanted to come and play for me. We couldn't get him in school. You have to pass a class, at least one. No, he's with the Rockets now, but Kenyon, one of my favorite guys of all time. I did get inducted into the National Basketball Hall of Fame. I think the thing to me that hit me the hardest was I had 23 guys from Cincinnati there, which was, mind-boggling that 23 former players would show up. And I was sitting there, and Van Exel was talking to somebody, and Kenyon said, "Who are you talking to?" And he said, "Lenny." He said, "Give me the phone." So Nick threw the phone over to Kenyon, and Kenyon said, "Your ass better be here tomorrow morning when Coach gets inducted." He said, "Ken, I just landed in LA. I got this deal I got to do in LA. I just landed in LA." And Kenyon said, "Listen, I will beat the living out of you for everything that man did for us if your ass isn't here." And so of course, I go up there to the thing, I'm looking around for Lenny, making sure he's still alive. And the guy got another flight, flew back all night to be there. And that's, to me, that's what it's all about. What it's all about is the relationships that you have. Obviously, you over the years, you develop a lot of relationship with a lot of coaches, but it's the players. It's the guys that go on and become what we're all proud of, and that's what's important. And certainly, Kenyon tops the list of that, along with a lot of others. And it's just been. I've been doing this for 40 years. 40 years. 40 years ago, I came in here and come up here, and y'all said, come up here and talk. I was like, what? I just came in to eat. So I was here 40 years ago talking to y'all about how we were going to turn this whole thing around at Walsh, and we were going to win. And I got an absolutely great Walsh story. There was a guy from Dover, Ohio, that I knew since he was a little kid, and he could really run. He could run. He could jump. He just couldn't think. So he gets hooked up with this girl. Remember this, Monk? So he gets hooked up with this girl, and they're in her room. No, they were in his room. They were in his room, and you can all imagine what was going on. And Richard Jasson was our guy. So he calls me and he says, "You need to come over here right now." And I'm like, "All right." So I go over to his office, and he said, "They were in his room, and they were, you know, and he said, we don't do that here, you know, at this school. So I'm like, all right, Artie, don't do that again. Do not bring her into your room. The next day I get a call again, come over here. So I go over there again, and I said, if you were in her room, I'm gonna slap the you know what out of you. And he said, Coach, I wasn't. And Richard said, no, he was in her room. So he said, one more time, we're gonna throw him out of school. I said, listen, I need you, right? I brought you here from Dover. I've known you, you know, pretty much your whole life. Don't do ignorant stuff like that, all right? I don't want you anywhere near the dorm. He said, Coach, I won't be. You know what they did? They went and bought a tent. So they're out in the middle of the field out there in the tent. I get a call the next morning again, I need to see you now. So I go in there and I wanted to slap him and I said, if you were I told you, he said, Coach, I was 100 yards from the dorm. And Richard said, yeah, they got a tent and they set it up out in the middle of the field out there. I'm like, well, I think he beat you again. Right, Mom? And he played a day later. Yeah. A lot of great memories at Walsh. We had some guys, when we first got there, it was at that time it wasn't comical. It's kind of comical now. We get a guy from Canal, Winchester. It's Canal, Winchester, wasn't it? Big old boy. 6'10", 6'11", big. And we go in there, and it wasn't probably 20 minutes into the first practice. He changes ends, and I'm like, what is he doing? You know, because we're down at this end. And he changes ends. He ran right through the doors, down the steps. I'm like, what? Is he sick? So I go down there. Actually, you were with me. We went down there, and he's running up the hill towards the dorm. Like, what is he doing? Next thing you know, he's at the dorm. He's got his car. He's headed back to Canal, Winchester. He's like, these guys are crazy. I'm not doing this. And we had a great time. I'm probably the only coach, and I don't know how many, if I have very many records or whatever, but I do have this record. I don't think anybody will ever break it. I'm at Akron, and we're playing for the league championship, and I didn't think we were getting our fair share of calls. And we had this big old guy, was like, he stood in front of the officials' locker room and our locker room, so nobody went in there and joked an official or anything. So I go in a locker room and I'm pissed. So I'm in there and I give those guys, the what for, and then I'm like, it's not your fault, because the locker room there was a cement block wall between our locker room and the officials' locker room. So I'm in there and I'm screaming, they're cheating the hell out of us, so sorry, and I'm going on and on and on and on. And I hear the whistle blow. I don't think anything about it, I'm in the locker room. So I'm walking out, and the guy said, Coach. I said, well, what's up? He said, they just threw you out of the game. I'm like, how can they throw me out of the game? I mean, I'm in the locker room. I don't get thrown out of the game in the locker room. I'm like, where is that SOB? So I go out on the floor trying to find the officials. They're, huddled up over there. And they're like, give me, one of those. And somehow, Jim Dennison, who I love to death. I mean, he is one of the greatest guys of all time. One of the greatest people I've ever been around. The former football coach at Akron, and just a legend around Akron U. He goes and talks to the officials out of throwing me out of the game, and says he'll sit behind me and make sure I behave. How about that? It's only a football coach could do. I had a good time. I had a good time at Akron. Loved it at Walsh. Still love Walsh. I went to a game. I don't know, it was a couple of years ago, and they called me and said, "Can you get some of the former guys to come back?" I'm like, "Sure." So I called the 4 guys that caused the most problems and said, "Y'all need to come back and, show your appreciation for the way you were taken care of here." They come back, and this is priceless. They come back, so one sits in front of Richard, one sits behind him, one sits on this side, and one sits on this side. He can't get out. So when the game's over with, he gets up to go leave. He goes to his car. One of them parked his car in front of him, one parked behind him, one parked on this side, and they left. He couldn't get his car out of the parking lot. So at the end of the day, everybody leaves, and there he is with his car here. He's blocked in, he can't get out. And they're already gone, so I can't, he's yelling at me, and I'm like, they're grown-ass men now. What do you mean? It was pretty unique, though. Who would think about doing something like that other than a bunch of degenerates like we had? Anyway, anybody got any questions? Yes, sir.
Since we can legally wager now in Ohio, will you make the Final Four next year? And remember your question, the answer for next year.
Well, listen, I grew up here, and wagering has never been an issue here. I'm just telling the truth. I grew up, they were rolling dice. And I grew up in Midville, 500 people, 2 stoplights, 9 bars. They were rolling dice all day. Does that answer your question? Yes, sir.
Where would you find an extra large tent?
That's a good question. I didn't ask that. I was too busy trying to keep him on campus. I never asked that. That's a great question.
My real question is, how do you get along with E. Gordon Keith?
I get along fine with him. You're how do you not get along with a guy that can't see over his desk? I tell you what just blew me away. So they asked me to go down and talk to the Ohio legislators. So I did. I went down, talked to the Ohio legislators, and they said, the governor wants to talk to you. And I went in, and he can't see over his desk either. So, I'm sitting there trying to look over the desk, and talk to him, and I said, you ever heard of Mooney Worther? He said, no. You've never heard of Mooney Worther? He said, no. And he shouldn't be governor. So, you ever been to Dover? He said, well, I've been by. I said, well, we went by. You went right by the Worther Museum. Y'all ever been there? It's fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
I knew you guys would. Probably gambling on it. But now it's fascinating that our governor didn't know who Mooney Worther was and didn't know the museum in Dover. That just blows me away.
Cadillac way back.
Cadillac.
Coach, what 3 things would you do to improve the game of college basketball? And I guarantee within the next 3 years, you'll win a national championship.
How about if I just answer the first one? Why don't we fire the officials? Call our own fouls.
No blood, no foul.
That's right, call our own fouls.
Play 21.
I don't know, somehow we gotta make those guys better. I'm not sure how you do that. I don't think it's possible. We had, did you watch our game against Maryland in the NCAA tournament?
That's right, Coach.
Cadillac, did you watch it?
Yeah, that's right, I did, Coach.
Okay.
Yes, dude.
You're not the only one that says that, Cadillac. I'm telling you. For those of you who don't watch television, they whistle the ball out of bounds. And the 2 guys, Cadillac, you know the 2 guys calling the game are from our league? Oh, yeah, you wait till I see those SOBs. Yeah, so they whistled out of bounds. It takes them, what do you think, Cadillac? What was it? Good 5 minutes, wasn't it?
That's right, Coach.
That's right. Good 5 minutes to figure out who the ball went off of. Well, Bill Raftery, being Raff, said the only way they can give West Virginia the ball is if it touched the hair of that guy who has that afro. Otherwise it's West Virginia ball. They gave it to them. So, you know. Right, Cadillac?
That's right, man. I always got your back, Bobby.
Brother, I need you sitting on the bench. Yes, sir.
Kobe Johnson have a future at West Virginia?
That's up to Kobe.
Not doing good, huh?
Well, I mean, I think his strength, he's 7 foot long. You know, if you measure him this way, he's 7 feet. So he should be one of the premier defenders in all of college basketball. He just hadn't tried yet. He's gonna try now. We're gonna work on that. We're gonna fix that. You don't have to raise your hand if you sit up here.
I'll be good.
Did you have a question, or were you waving at
No.
the camera?
I have a question.
You want me to sit down? I mean, just tell me. It's not gonna hurt my feelings any.
The question is.
Yes, sir.
I can't tell if you're a fan of portal or not, but you have, in this day's rules, you have to live and die by it, more or less. Along with the NILs, I'd like to hear your expressions on that. I do know you have a Jesse Edwards coming in from Syracuse, and supposedly one of the statements he made was he came to WVU because his NIL was better.
I'm not involved in that.
I'm just asking if you know any of it.
I played the fifth. Where do I go with this one, Amber?
Ask him the next question.
Next question.
Now, here's the honest truth is he came in and he got NIL. I'm not involved in it in any way. We have a guy he's actually in Phoenix, and he is stupid rich. And so when all this came down, we didn't start it, by the way. That was that school up north that started it. And so he he really did it more for football than for us, but it turned out better for us than it did for football. But he got it, and he got Oliver Luck. Y'all know Oliver, right? Or heard of Oliver? So Oliver really is the guy that's supposed to be in charge. We can't find him. He's really good at taking a job, getting paid, and then getting lost. And he was my AD. I never saw him. He was my athletic director. He got the paycheck though. I checked. Does he get paid? Yeah, he's paid. Anyway, I don't know. I guess it got started because, you know, people like Bill Self and those guys that have cheated for years and years and years, they just figured they'd make it legal. So it's legal now, but we're not allowed to be involved in it. I don't want to be involved in it. I don't want those guys coming to me like asking, you know, hey, I didn't get this or I didn't get that. You know, they come in and do that. No, so I'm get the hell out, which I kind of like doing. But I don't understand a lot of it. I know they've called a large number of people in our state and asked them to contribute, but I don't have any idea. I have no idea what they get. Don't want to know. If they get more money than me, I'm gonna fire them anyway. I don't know. That's a good question. I just don't have an answer for it.
Okay,
'Cause
fair enough.
I don't know anything about it really. Yes, sir.
How challenging is the travel schedule that you guys make?
It's brutal. It's brutal. ESPN helps us a lot, you know, so they'll send us to Lubbock. You ever been to Lubbock? It's not the end of the world, but you can damn sure see it from there. Talk about what a spot that is. So they always play us there, and ESPN does for some reason. So we end up playing there, and then by the time we get home, it's usually about 5:30 in the morning, and we got a big jet too. It's 5:30 in the morning, you know, and then you're supposed to stand up in front of your guys and say, make sure you take your ass to class now. If you're not in class, my God, you'll be out there flipping that tire. I get these big tractor tires. They're as tall as our biggest guy, so they have to flip them tires if they don't go to class. It's hard to do that, you know, if they just get rolled in at 5:30 in the morning. It's rough, you know. Like you get in 5:30 in the morning, and then you're supposed to go to class the next day, maybe practice a little bit, whatever. Then you play the next day, and nobody in our league has to do that but us. But now we got new people in there, so hopefully it balances out a little bit better. We actually get to go to Florida, you know, someplace where there's actually people. Yes, sir.
Yeah, do you guys ever, West Virginia ever consider jumping into the ACC or moving into another conference or anything? Because ACC would give you your rivalry with Pitt and everything like that.
Above my pay grade. That's the, you know, it's funny. Can you imagine? And I'm not taking a shot at him because I like the little fellow, but. Presidents are the ones that make all those decisions, as crazy as that sounds. The presidents get together and they vote on those kind of things. Like we took in BYU. Why would we take in BYU? It's just another long trip for us, and it's a long trip for most people. But that's the presidents. That's 100% the presidents. That's not the athletic directors. It's not the coaches. That's the presidents. They decide everything. They decide pretty much everything they don't care about. Yes, sir.
Coach, how many more seasons do you think you got in you, and what are you going to do after you're not coaching?
Look at me. What the hell's wrong with me?
Should we ask Larry?
No, keep him out of it. I don't know. I've got two years left on the contract, which I guess I could extend whenever I want to extend it, according to language. So, yes, sir.
Coach, how is Josiah Harris looking? And what's he look like, I guess, coming into year 2? And also, on the other side of that, what's your favorite bar still standing in Tuscarawas County? Other than Canton 13.
What was the question?
Josiah Harris.
Josiah is our hardest working guy, and it's not even close. He really has put time in. He's going to play. I mean, he's going to play because he works so hard. He's not physically. He's not quite ready to play yet. You know, in our league's the most physical league in America. It's not even close. And I think that would be tough for him, that part of it. But, you know, I think we could play maybe some zone or do something to kind of, because he's got great length. He'd be good in the zone. He wouldn't be good man-to-man. But he's really fixed his shot. You know, his thumb underneath. I don't know why they do that. Why they do that now? They got their thumb underneath the ball this way. If you get your thumb under the ball that way and you shoot it, you're going that way, instead of just laying it in your hand and going up and through with it. Then we've got that fixed now, I think. But what a great guy. He's an absolutely wonderful kid. He's one of the better guys I've been around. What was the second part?
Favorite bar in T County is still standing.
I don't know. What's that bar all the coaches go to?
The Onion?
Huh?
The old Onion.
Onion, the old Onion.
It's Huffy's now.
Is it gone?
It's Huffy's now.
Oh, it's Huffy's now. See, I don't frequent that, so I don't know the names of all those, you know, much. Yes, sir.
Coach, how do you deal with social media with your basketball players?
How do I deal with media?
Social media players and amongst the team?
Well, I have people that I just don't let them around. There are people who, Cincinnati was the worst. When I was at Cincinnati, they knew who would say the wrong thing, and they just went right to him. So I wouldn't let them see him anymore. Not for me or us or whatever, for him. It just they made him look bad. Ruben Patterson was a great example. Ruben just didn't know what to say. So he would say some things and it didn't come out right. So wouldn't let him around. I can do that. Now, if it was a 5'6" guy, probably couldn't do that, but I can do that.
What game are you looking forward to most on your schedule this year?
First one. Usually the first one, you don't play anybody real hard. So I can add to my win total, you know. Good? Hey, appreciate y'all. I'm telling you what, this is, I was thrilled to death when I was at Walsh to come here. I was thrilled to death when I was at Akron. I love being here, being with you people. This is home, and it's great to be home. I appreciate y'all very much. Thank you.